All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start. Can everyone hear me?
We can.
Yep.
Yes.
All right, excellent. Thank you for coming this morning. Introduction of our new medical data warehouse and correlation engine, and in combination with AMI and AIS, we've come to present to you a new solution in terms of bringing efficiency to the environment, to your medical environment, purchasing costs, as well as logistics, as well as efficiencies in patient management. Moving ahead, we're going to go right ahead to the agenda for today, basically the speakers, and myself, Jean-Michel Letenier. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Atomic Information Systems. David Howell is the Chief Executive Officer of Associative Marketing International. He's our major partner in the United States and Canada. And Cindy Ogden, a specialist in hospital rehabilitation, purchasing, auditing, and contracts. And Mr. Sriyash Kuddy, our Chief Technology Officer, will do a demo of the actual product itself, a brief preview, not far, somewhat intense, but not too much. That being said, our agenda basically is to review the backgrounds. We've just done that. The healthcare, our value proposition, the healthcare solution overview, information management, the challenges. This is mostly on the technical side. How we actually manage to do this through using associative technology. And the healthcare challenges, management challenges that we address. David will address that conversation, as well as the case study and the actual real-life events that are occurring in some facilities that we have in Canada. Cindy will address the acquisitions, audits, facilities, mergers, and Yash will do the overview of the demo. Okay. Moving forward, here we go. Is a little bit about the companies. Atomic Information Systems, formed in 2011. We're basically introducing associative information technology rather than relational database technology into the globe at the moment as a replacement and as a partner to increase efficiency and reduce costs. Associative Marketing International, formed in 2003 out of Toronto, Canada, and covering the United States and most of North America, specializing in IT and technology and project management and architecture. And together we've created essentially a healthcare service provider solution as a collaborative effort. Now, basically what we're looking to do as a value proposition is reduce operating costs by 15 to 20%. 25%. That should be a significant number to most of you. What must be considered is the efficiency left on the table from existing systems and disparate systems. Our other objective is to streamline the procurement costs, unify the vendors, and bring them all into line with the most advantageous price. Reduce shrinkage and wastage. Many of you are familiar with the concept of holdover items or doctors basically wasting certain materials. We identify that and bring that back into play. All of that leads to improved patient care. That being said, how is that possible? It's basically through the ability to add more capital to the system. So we reduce your cost and more money in the budget. Now, the facilities merger and acquisitions audit is interesting because when people decide to purchase hospitals or rehabilitate hospitals, they'd like to know what they're getting into. And as of today, it's an extremely difficult proposition. Cindy will address that later. Another issue on the table is to correlate the billing and insurance. Many people are so busy in the hospital themselves that they don't add all of the proper codes and they don't coordinate with the proper insurance billing, and anywhere from 15 to 20% is left on the table just on billing. Now, the other issue is, of course, real-time reporting on the events that occur in the hospital or in the campus with multiple hospitals. and the idea that the management should be able to address any point of the organization, any department at will, and we offer that capability. Now, all of these systems are based on basically databases and basically data and data management and the organization of the same. Bad data quality, one of the driving forces behind most of these problems that we find, duplicate data, null data, data types, constraints, foreign key constraints, completeness and accuracy and data consistency. The uniformity creates quite a great deal of havoc in terms of collecting money from the insurance companies. Trying to clean that data, turn it into useful information is also a very, very expensive process, and one that most vendors will shy away from. They don't mention it, but they shy away from it and don't explain the process where we call ETL, or extract, transform, and load. The other part is the reconciliation. For example, in some cases you may have one hospital, or you may have three, and you'd like to consolidate the data from all three hospitals as a management or as the ownership. And that is nearly an impossible task, Herculean task at least, for any system out there. We actually render that quite easily. Again, disparate OLTP, OLAP processes and data repositories. Again, different systems. One particular institution we're working with has over 605 different systems to manage. None of them speak to each other, and they're all different code bases. Not an interesting situation for any manager. Where we address these issues is the data quality is maintained at the source. So AtomicDB does not, or our associative database does not modify the source data. We continue to keep that as a gold copy of the data, and we simply aggregate that data into a usable piece of information. The data cleansing process, since we have only a single instance storage solution, we do not keep duplicates of the data, enabling us to easily clean the data within minutes as opposed to months. Minimal reconciliation process, we're by default, and we are by default a data warehouse. So we can grab data from anywhere and aggregate it with very little to no ETL required. And again, the issue of single instance for OLTP and OLAP, AtomicDB by design is already transactional, is already analytical, and because it's a single instance, it facilitates the consistency of OLTP and OLAP. Now, what is associative technology? Conceptually, data is simply an element. The word John, it could be John Street, John Boulevard, a toilet, a first name, a last name. It's a piece of data to us. In our world, we combine those data elements through indices. We don't store them. We only store them once. We only control the indices. So basically, we control the data pointers and construct any structure that we wish. We simply repeat the usage of the data element. So we manage the pointer associations. We don't manage the data. What does that mean? In a normal world, we would deal with an example record set here. As you can see, there are duplicates. Okay, we have Amanda, we have Susan, and this is standard throughout the world in every system. What AtomicDB does basically, or associative technology does, is it deduplicates all of the data and then simply reconnects everything via indices. So the data is always consistent. There's 100% accuracy, and we're able to basically mimic a form of the human brain and the way it functions. Duplicate data elements are not stored. Now, the mathematical, or I should say the technical way of looking at this, if someone is into technology, essentially a traditional record set. As you can see, order item, quantity, qualifiers, order ID. We basically create associative objects on each of the columns. associative collections, I should say, on each of the items. And then we deduplicate each column. And as pointed out graphically earlier, we simply reconnect using pointers, thus recreating the exact same duplicate data set, but without all of the overhead. So in a standard data warehousing process, standard approach, you'll see we collect the raw data. The data is processed. Data is sent to be cleaned or manipulated in such a way that it presents a useful piece of information. Then it's sent to exploratory data analysis. And that process repeats ad infinitum until it is a useful data set. So it could be twice, could be 100 times. And then it's given to either models or algorithms or metadata structures or within a SQL database or a data warehouse. And that then is presented as a data product or communicated as a visualized report. And of course, from that point forward, management makes this. The green part that you see on the screen is the difficult area. It is repetitive and not guaranteed to success, and where most of this whole process breaks down. In the atomic DB world, or the associative world, I should say, the raw data is attracted, collected, aggregated into the associative system. The data is cleaned, deduplicated automatically in most parts. Then it's presented to models and algorithms. Data is then processed accordingly, a data product results, and the communication to either a visualized report, and you can make the decisions. It's a very much more linear process and considerably simpler and less prone to error is the best way to say that. So in essence, we can take data from a data warehouse, SQL databases, mainframes, file systems, or again, programming objects. This is particularly interesting in the medical field because programming objects are what a system like Epic is based on. A cache database is essentially a programming object solution. So we can pull data from all of them and write back to them. So we work in a bidirectional synchronization. So we can operate in parallel to all of these systems. That's quite important as we come through the concept of adding a hospital, removing a hospital, or many, many hospitals. As you can see, we can have one system, one hospital with all scripts, Cerner, Epic, another with CMDs, NextGen, Promise, and the list goes on. There's over 900 forms of EHR in the system, in the world today, actually. So we can either communicate directly on a one-to-one basis, or at some point we can aggregate into the data warehouse, thus producing a management interface across all hospitals, individual hospitals, and of course business intelligence can be attached to the resulting set, allowing the managers to do a great deal more work in terms of administering the system, whether it's at the hospital level, the department level, the campus level, or the corporate level. The billing solution also can be done across all systems in this manner. And that is a unique problem to most of the industry. Additionally, we're preparing to create an electronic healthcare record system, or an EHR of our own, which would allow you to operate in parallel with these other systems. And at some point, if you wish to do an upgrade, you simply have to turn one off and turn one on. Unlike things like Epic or Allscripts, or it's a forklift upgrade and the hospital is basically bereft of system for months, years at a time in some cases. So I'm going to turn it over to David, and he'll speak on some of the challenges that we addressed and have looked at in real life up in some of our institutions in Canada. David?
Thank you. Just a little bit of background. We are a consulting company, have been since 2003, and I met JM in about 2012, 13. Excuse me, and we got pretty enamored with the associative database technology because of tasks that we were charged with a lot of our clients. and we're unable to really successfully do. And right now, with the hospitals in Canada, the only reason we've been able to orchestrate what we're doing is because of an associative technology. We are currently doing a OR procedure analysis, looking at preference cards from doctors. And so far in the pilot, which went more quickly than we had expected because of the ability of associative technology, we've reduced operating costs by 15 to 25%. In just 3 hospitals, arthroscopies, we saved over $1 million. The whole project started as a supply chain and SKU rationalization with a procurement group, but it quickly expanded into the hospitals, and we recognized opportunities to save hospitals. And in Canada, there's very little low-hanging fruit in terms of saving more money. And so this is a wonderful initiative because it doesn't impact staffing levels or patient care. It's actually saving money directly out of the hospital. We capture all the consumables expense, whether it be anesthetic or whatever is used in procedures. We capture the procedure times to improve OR scheduling and utilization. We measure the surgical outcomes, so we're looking at readmissions, because if we are pushing doctors to use less expensive instruments and supplies, we wanted to make sure that it didn't affect outcomes or infection rates and readmissions, and clearly it has not done that. The other thing we found in terms of shrinkage and waste was that a lot of items were being opened in the OR. In the event that the doctor needed it, we now have created hold bags for for some items, and these items only get opened if the doctor asks for it. Traditionally, the items were actually opened, and if they weren't used, they were thrown out, which contributed significantly to the overall costs. So we've identified all kinds of inefficiencies, and we're able to correlate the billing and insurance, of course, and we think that it will improve patient care and wait times over time as all of these changes are implemented, because again, we're not impacting staffing levels. The cuts so far in Canada have only hurt healthcare and patient care. So this is a way to save a considerable amount of money and not impact that patient care level. And additionally, we're now working on maximizing radiology revenues. So it's been a very, very promising initiative, and of course it will work in really any vertical. So if we go to the next slide. So this is the case study that I was just speaking of. So we completed its pilot stage, and we're moving into phase 2. There are over 400 hospitals in the province of Ontario. Phase 1 looked at 7 super hospitals, and we conducted an operating room and radiology procedure preference card supply cost analysis. And as I mentioned, in a specific procedure, which was knee arthroscopy, at just 3 hospitals, we found potential savings in excess of $400,000. When we approached the doctors to suggest that they actually change some of the instruments and things that they're using, supplies that they're using, we're not getting any pushback. We found that the doctors had no concept of what they were using and how much it cost. So we've really provided the hospital with some impressive results. And as I said, with so little low-hanging fruit in terms of savings, this is being embraced, and we've now ended the pilot, and we're rolling it out to the over 400 hospitals. In just 3 hospitals, we found potential savings of over $1 million in orthopedics, and knee arthroscopy represented about $600,000 of that 1 million. So you can imagine, if that's just 3 hospitals, 1 procedure at $1 million, we have 400 hospitals to go. This will be probably one of the most significant savings initiatives that any of the hospitals could possibly run. And clearly it is facilitated by an associative database, relational databases. This would have been a manual nightmare, because we're pulling contracts, we're pulling invoicing, we're pulling preference cards, supply lists. it's a number of databases that we're drawing all this data from, and it has been highly successful. Okay, Jim?
Nope, sorry. Thank you, David. We're going to move on to Cindy. Hello, Cindy, are you there? Cindy?
Yes, I'm here.
Marvelous here. We're going to introduce you as Miss Cindy Ogden. Her specialty is hospital management, hospital purchasing, rehabilitation. She's directly responsible for the rehabilitation of over 25 hospitals in her career, down to the bare walls, as well as contracts and vendor management and contractor management as well. Cindy?
Yes, okay. Basically, I started in hospital sales in 1993 when Hillary Care was starting, but didn't get implemented. But I did see the direction that healthcare was going, and how it was going to impact the facilities themselves and the medical space arena. And that was at a time when really no one was paying attention to it. I jumped in with both feet. I saw a huge opportunity, and also the companies that owned hospitals at the time in 93, 94, 96 were doing a lot of repositioning and also adjusting their model for standalone physician offices, which basically are dinosaurs nowadays, to putting a lot of physicians in one office and with one staff to serve all the physicians. So basically getting to what Atomic Information Systems does and why I got involved with it was because I could instantly see the value added component involved in analyzing a hospital sale or a hospital merger or a hospital acquisition, whether it be a troubled hospital or a hospital maybe in the past, where you could look at the data and see where the waste or the problems were, and then you could use that information to go forward and avoid those errors. And a lot of CEOs that I talk to about this are very excited about this new product. It gives them the opportunity to have a bird's eye view instantly of everything that's happening within their hospital and exactly knowing what where the waste is or where the areas are they can improve on either on their operating statement as far as doing a kind of a due diligence, so to speak, when they're either assessing their hospital, or even a buyer can come in and assess a hospital and do as part of a due diligence report, and it's as necessary nowadays as a appraisal on the real estate and an appraisal on the business itself. So this is basically evaluation of the expenses, and like David had previously mentioned, if you had $1 million in savings, how that would translate in a hospital sale at a 6 cap, which is rate of return that a good hospital today would fetch in price based on their bottom line. A $1 million savings would add literally a $16 million value to that hospital instantly, just that amount of savings. So this is a really, really necessary tool to have today, and it enhances the value if you're a seller. It identifies waste, and you can, if you're a seller and you're looking to tighten up your budget and find the waste, and you can correct it before offering the facility and the business operations sale to potential buyers. If you're a buyer, you can identify the value-added component quite easily and quickly, and the income expense statements are properly and thoroughly vetted and reviewed and verified. And like I said, it's a necessary report. And also you can, of course, identify the doctors who are over or underutilizing supplies, staff procedures, or operating room time. And what's great about it is that if you're buying it and adding it to a hospital system, it can be easily integrated into, the system can be integrated into the new hospital or ambulatory surgery center, ASCs, that are acquired. And, or you have the option of taking that savings and applying it to buying new equipment or rehab or retrofit of the facility, or adding more medical procedure services, paying off debt, or opening satellite clinics, hire more doctors or staff. So that's my instant overview on the value of this service.
Thank you, Cindy.
You're welcome.
Now, thank you. Wonderful, dear. We're going to turn it over to Sriyash Cuddy. He's our Chief Technology Officer at Information Management Systems. Yash will go through the portal overview. This is actually how the logic works behind the system. And at some later point, he will present an actual physical demonstration data, which I think everyone will be quite impressed with. Yash?
Yes, thank you, John. Let's say everyone can hear me nice and clear.
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is the high-level overview of what we call the Atomic Medical Data Warehouse portal. And at a high level, what you see here is the core service which you're offering, which is there in the center, which is the portal itself. Now, this is available to the hospital users as well as the portal administrators, where you are working with the data set which you're going to get from the hospitals. You're going to do some data management on that as far as all the cleansing which John had mentioned earlier. And once you have the cleansed data, we are talking about being able to help you visualize or slice and dice the data, query or talk to the data to find out where the efficiencies are. So this is an overall solution which has a data ingestion component to it, a data management component to it, and a visualization. Now, and before we go out and talk about the efficiencies, we also highlight, okay, why would we say that these are the products which are efficient, or why we identify these are the items which we say is adding to your efficiency. So we have some numbers which you can see and compare it with all the other surgeons or hospitals that they are using. And that's actually, once we say, okay, these are the efficient items which we find out, we also talk about presenting these items to the surgeons to take a deeper look at it, to understand where the savings are coming from and if they would like to switch over to that. So this is basically an end-to-end solution which talks about your data, the cleansing part of it, the visualization, and then the value add which we can bring at the end of the day. Okay, so now what you also see on this system here, or where we are talking, is when we get the data from the hospitals, we do see that there is a lot of variation in how the feeds are coming to us. All the hospitals have different data elements, and what Atomic DB actually natively does is, you can aggregate this information into a single, destination source or destination model, if you want to call it, and then feed that to our process. And the whole thing which we do it, the way we do it is, you have some rules which we can define as far as how we are doing the data cleansing, how we are actually taking the data in and loading it into the system, and we kind of help automate that whole process. So this module, the way we are designing it, will help you scale out. So today, if you have 10 procedures which you're dealing with it, and the automation which you're introducing here will help you add more procedures efficiently. So everything which we do as far as cleansing the data is concerned, loading the data is concerned, we kind of identify the business rules around it as well. And that is what this high-level process is showing you. Yeah, we get the data from the hospitals into our central repository. We, kind of figure out a way to do the data cleansing. And again, these are all existing manual processes which we do today, which is what we've seen in the hospitals. But we are coming up with the rules and, some level of intelligence around it, and which is what we are automating over here. Okay, so the end goal and result, what we have is efficiency introduced into our process of data ingestion, data management, and then being able to query the data or talk to the data to understand, where the savings can be achieved from. All right, so now we kind of move on to the high-level modules. All right. So now this, again, at a very high level, what we are saying is this component, which we are going to demo today, is core around the data visualization. But to get that far, we do have to go through these other modules which you see up here, which is the data ingestion part, where you are interfacing with the hospitals. We are getting the data from the 6 systems out there, which is actually all disparate systems. And then we come up with a process to do those data ingestions. And today we are dealing with, a flat file feed which we get from the hospitals. But in future versions, we would be able to directly integrate with the hospitals to get feeds from the systems directly. Now, once you get the data, what we have seen is that there's a whole lot of data cleansing or validation that needs to take place. And in a traditional world, it's a nightmare because we have all these disparate systems and we have duplicate data coming from different sources. So the exercise of cleaning the data itself is humongous. The way Atomic DB does it efficiently is because what John had mentioned earlier, we saw how we deduplicate the data. So it doesn't matter from where it is coming, where the information is coming from, but we are able to deduplicate it and make it as a single instance. So that's the first value add we get out of the source system. And once you clean up that, or at least you deduplicate the data, you also have the ability to seamlessly make changes or updates. Now, a good example here would be like, there are typos or spelling mistakes in the data values which we get. Some hospitals has an extra, representation of characters in there, or maybe it is just called something different. So by association, what we can see is, okay, these are the data elements out there which, looks to be same, but, are represented differently. So we have an ability to clean or consolidate and merge those into one unique value. So those are the kind of activities we are talking about when we do the data management. You can clean up, you can add more data, delete, do all the maintenance which you are doing today, but in a much more efficient manner. Okay, so now that's basically the input to the visualization tool, and which is what I will touch in a moment. So as far as the other modules are concerned, administration, obviously all system needs an administration module. That's what we have. And the last one is the online fair, which I just mentioned earlier. The ability to even further show the surgeons or the hospitals, when we say, okay, these are the identified savings, you give them enough information online and they're able to understand, okay, why are we saying that this is a better option, or this is a value add or savings which we see from the system. Khalid, any questions so far, or I can actually switch over to the actual demo?
Nope, we're going to switch you over to the demo and
Okay.
make you the host, and we'll go from there. Give it a couple of seconds. All right, Yash, you're in control.
Okay, so let me know when you see my screen. You should see the splash screen for Atomic Medical. Okay, good. Okay, so now that we have a background to all this, I'll directly switch to our dashboard screen. And now this is what I would want to communicate. Now this system can be used by different audiences. Now all the way from the top management to the detailed level individuals who would like to, understand the data in depth, right? So now what you're seeing here is a very high level view for the executives, where in one shot you can see, okay, we are dealing with X amount of cooperations and the sites. Now, one thing which I want to highlight here is there is a hierarchy built into the system. Now, if you're coming from different countries or regions and states and cooperation and sites, we can build that hierarchy into this. Now, right now we are working with what we had from Canada, which is a cooperation and a site. and within that we had the hospitals, right? So that's how we have structured it. But we had the ability to introduce, hierarchy the way we see fit. Okay, it's basically getting the appropriate hierarchy data and then tying it or integrating it with the actual medical information. We also have at the top what you see is, a date parameter which drives the whole system. So essentially we could get the feed files, on a frequent basis, call it, quarterly or biannual or annual, however you want to do it. And these analysis can be kind of done across a time period. So you can do as of some day, and then you still have an ability to compare it as of, 3 months ago. So that's again something which we're building into this piece. Now, apart from the statistical information which you see at the top row, right, the number of corporations, the size, the procedure which we're dealing with, the number of surgeons who are involved within this procedure, this actually lets you, so whatever financials you are seeing in the center, right, I mean, that's something which you can, on one single click, navigate or drill down to identify specific regions. For example, if you're interested in a specific site within a corporation, you can just select the site of interest and everything trickles down. And so you can see the procedures within this site, the hospitals, the surgeons, and the items which they use for those surgeons, for those surgeries, right? And then based on that, internally we have, calculated, or we have information which tells us, okay, for this procedure, this surgeon had used X amount of items, right? And then we do the math about the pricing and the information which we have, and then that's how we arrive at these cost numbers. Okay. Now, what you're seeing here is basically the cost for a procedure, across surgeons, across sites. And then when you look at the lowest cost item, what it does is it actually does the query against the complete data set we have, which means you're going across the board, not just by the specific surgeon and the procedure or the site, but you are doing it across that hierarchy of information we talked about. And we are identifying, oh, okay, look, based on what these surgeons are doing for this specific site, but there is an optimal, or there is a different items which are used across the board, and that's where these lowest cost item numbers are coming from. Okay, and then we are just doing a calculation of the savings right here. Now, in this dashboard view, what you're actually, at a very high level, you are able to look at the category of the items which are used, and this is probably good enough for the executives to identify at a high level what's going on. And then, you have a different panel which can actually do a detailed investigation here. Now, I'll just click on a couple of procedures here to see how this functionality flows, okay, so you can understand it better. Now, if you're looking at a specific procedure, which is what drives, most of our investigation or analysis, so you are looking at this uteroscopy procedure, and then you know that these are the selected surgeons. And then, by the way, the surgeon names have been masked just for privacy purposes. So what you can see is for this procedure, you have these surgeons who are, a part of this procedures, and then it is showing you a total cost of all the items used by these surgeons. Now, you can pick and choose category of items. So now, in one click, it is narrowing down to specific items in question. So based on the high-level chart which you saw here, it is showing you, you can clearly see that here, this item, which is the gloves, seems to be a very hot item here, which you can really get a good efficiency. So you can come down, click on the gloves, and it actually shows you what's the picture as far as the gloves is concerned. Now in this, what you're seeing here is, okay, for this gloves, I do see a lot of savings, and now I'm trying to investigate what potentially is causing this. Now, it could be because these items which are categorized as gloves are coming from different vendors. So maybe we have to look at, okay, what is the pricing when it comes from different vendors? Or maybe, there are surgeons who use gloves, and it's just that the size of the gloves are probably priced differently, and that's what is causing to, is showing us that, okay, the difference is because of that. Okay, so I'll show you a different screen where you can drill down in depth, but this is a very high-level executive view of what we can see as far as the numbers are concerned. But what I want to focus here is your ability to kind of talk to the data, right? You can slice and dice the way you want it. You can either go from top down, which is the hierarchy, or you can go from the bottom up, which is the item. So you just click on the item which is in question and go back and say, okay, who are the surgeons or what are the procedures who use this item? You can identify efficiency from bottom up as well. You can even do from a vendor standpoint. Let's say you are just interested from one vendor standpoint and see, okay, how does this vendor play into the whole equation? So you have multiple ways of slicing and dicing this information here. Any questions so far before I get down to a different level of information?
No, continue. We'll do the questions after.
Okay, good. Now here's a comparative, a screen where you have the ability to compare surgeons. Okay, now again, let's take a typical example. We go by a procedure. So you have selected a procedure here, which is uteroscopy, and then within that, it shows you a list of surgeons. Now, definitely you can compare. So what you see on the left-hand side bottom is basically cost for each of the surgeon and for the items they are using, which is rolled up at a category. Now, you do have an ability to kind of drill down deeper. So within a category, it shows you the actual items. And you can see that now it's very clear from this that there are surgeons who really don't use some of these. Now, again, all they're saying is this is what the data tells us. So now you can actually, as part of investigation, find out, okay, what's the difference? Why are some of the surgeons not required to use this or don't use this, whereas some other surgeons use it? And that itself will drive the efficiency. Identifying, what's the cause. Now here, a good example, let's just, look at this information which you're seeing. You can see that this particular item, which is $11.74, with iPad sterile, is just used by one of the doctors here, but not the others. Now, what could the reason be, right? That's something which we can investigate. Now, again, these are all information you have at your disposal to continue your investigation or analysis. Okay, so now in the center of the screen at the bottom, what you're seeing is basically comparing the lowest cost across regions or sites in this example, right? So the left side shows you the doctor's cost, and then you look at the lowest cost across the region. And here you can see the same, you have the same ability. You can drill it down deeper and see why are we saying that these are, cheaper. So now again, this is rolling it down to a site, but it will allow you to investigate further down as, into the surgeons in a different screen. But again, this is all your approach. You start from a high level, then keep drilling down until you nail the actual, item and the, procedure where you can see there is an efficiency. Okay, now again, few things on the chart here. Maybe let me just scale down the number of surgeons, and then you can see how this transposes. Now, what you're seeing here is when you selected 3 of the surgeons, these charts clearly show that not all these surgeons are using all the items, right? And that's what in one glance you can see. So again, there is some investigation or analysis you can do. Why is that some surgeon need it or don't need it? So that again can boil down to figuring out if this is something which is required from a procedure standpoint, right? But again, you have the data to make those kind of investigation or analysis. Okay, so now let me switch over to a detail. So now you can clearly see, right? So this is where the efficiency lies. And now what you can do is go to a detail screen. So then we'll switch to a detail screen. So this is what you again do. You select your procedure and you select your surgeon in question. So let's pick up one of the surgeons here. And now what you're doing is looking at or analyzing the surgeon, right? So you look at the surgeon and look at the items used by the surgeon and the cost for the procedure for that surgeon in question. Now, on the top right grid, what it is showing you is the cost, which is the extended cost for that surgeon. It is also showing you the lowest cost within the region. Remember the one which I said where it kind of rolls it up across the regions? That is what it is showing here. And again, the cost savings at that point. Now, if we take one example, let's say the custom pack, the first row. The bottom grid which you see is actually showing you the details of that. So essentially what it is showing you is that particular item and which are the surgeons. Now again, the surgeons has been masked over here, but what you can see is this item right here, the row number 2 is the 43.32 cents, which showed up at the lowest cost item up there. So you actually was able to nail down, okay, why is this different? So now you can find out, okay, this is because this is a surgeon who is coming from a different site. okay, while the surgeon in question which we selected was coming from the site which is called Q site, right? Okay, so that's the cost over here, but we see that in the second grid here, when it is coming from a different site, there is the number difference. So now, again, all you're trying to do is analyzing, okay, what makes this different? Maybe the site over here is procuring that item from a different vendor, or maybe the quantity used, or maybe the pricing which they have is different. But again, what we're seeing here is your ability to nail down or track what is the cause of that difference. Okay. Now, once you identify that particular surgeon and the item, we again let you drill down to the raw data which we got from the hospitals. So again, if you pick the surgeon which we were looking at earlier, we look at the specific item, and it shows you this particular item here. Okay, so it will take you all the way back to the raw data which you had received. Now, I want to highlight a couple of things which could potentially cause this difference, right? Now, we have seen the way the pricing information is received. There are some, process they follow to do those calculations. Now, again, you can see based on how the items are purchased, right? I mean, some comes in packs of 10, some comes in packs of 50, some is, based on when you had purchased. There are some different numbers, and that's why it could potentially be a different cost. Just by changing the vendor or changing your product, the way you are purchasing could lead into some of the savings which we are seeing. And that's why, when David mentioned there are some low-hanging fruits, it's basically your ability to find those specific items when you drill down and, going backwards, right? And then rather than saying, hey, the surgeon has to change this item, may not be the case. It's just because of, some of the pricing model around it, or where you're deriving the price information or purchasing this item from somewhere. Okay. So essentially, what I just walked you through is that whole process of drilling down. You look at a complete financial picture, and then you kind of traverse down the data. You kind of go one level down until you hit the raw data to see that, okay, this is probably the root cause, and helps you in your decision making. Okay, so any questions on this flow or basically the portal here?
Yash, I'm going to unmute so everybody can,
Okay.
if I can. Hold on.
Yeah, I
yes,
have.
okay,
Yeah, I have
very good.
out.
I see we have James Bradley and Steve Goldman. Do you guys have any questions?
Yes, James Bradley.
What happened?
You there?
Yes, we're here.
Yeah, hi.
Go ahead, James.
Yeah. I've done consulting in a hospital systems for many years. This is actually a great tool to do kind of roll-ups. One other technology that I've been utilizing, or used to be on the market, was called the electronic financial record. It was now under a different company, but was under Caramedic at the time, which they take collected information, data warehouse, did the cleansing, ETL process, and all that good stuff, and brought it into a dashboard management tool, which you have here. But where you go multi-system, which is actually more attractive to me. The question being is that, I just want to give you a little background on me. When you do the roll-ups of data, are you able to bring in from a patient accounting standpoint, or is it purely a costs per hospital?
We can bring in anything that you want.
Okay.
We're not restricted. As I said, the system is based on an associative database technology, not relational. So we can basically connect anything to anything in any combination that you wish. So if you want to bring in accounting data, patient data, purchasing data, and mix that with procedure and surgeon data and location data, we can. And it's all dynamic.
Yeah. Well, it's wonderful that you have the bricks and mortars to do that, the basics, because as you know, the hospital systems, it's a very dynamic process, and they all are kind of in their own world. But when you start doing roll-ups like Columbia's of the world, they want to do aggregate data from multi-systems, multi-regions. They want to look at the financial They want to look at the cost per procedure. They want to drill down and find out what the errors and incidents are. They want to back it into quality models. They want to do, of course, match it up with the CMS here in the United States to make sure that the macros are in line. So there's a lot of it's a monster. It's a monster, very similar to that the Canadian model. But anyway, I was just curious about that. Thank you for the answer. Appreciate it.
And just so you're aware, this is as David Howell pointed out, this is real. This is not smoke. We actually restored over a period of 12 months, less than 12 months actually, over $2 million, $2.2 million, I think, to the hospital's budget.
That's wonderful.
And just on 5 procedures. And there are somewhere in the neighborhood of about 500 procedures. So when you extrapolate math, it's rather dramatic.
Have you thought about a predictive analytics module?
Well, we've got that capability as well. That hasn't been. We're preparing to use third-party tools such as Logi Analytics or Pentaho or Tableau, et cetera, to offer that possibility.
Okay.
Those engines, we're simply providing the aggregated data. So some people have preferences. We have our dashboard here, which we're using. We'll be creating a custom dashboard for certain people. But the core is that, you're no longer required to get data from one place and get a report, then go get to another place and get another report, then go to another place and get another report, and then try to put those reports together to make sense.
Yeah.
We do that all for you now in one place. And
that's wonderful.
It's persistent is the key thing. As Yash pointed out, when you specify that date, you can do a comparative analysis going back over any period of time, a week, a day, a month, a year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever. The data doesn't change.
Well, that's very good to hear that. Well, great. Thank you.
All right. All right. If anybody does have any other questions, we'll close it for now, and we'll revisit later this afternoon. Thank you again.
We start our next seminar or webinar
1
at 1
o'clock.
o'clock. If you want to,
Yes.
if you want to get any links, you can send me an email at cogden@aisys.us, and I'll be happy to send you all the links for the invites where you register, and you'll get the codes to join this webinar.
All right. Thank you very much for everyone joining.